How much? I'm going to necessarily talking here. Go on. How long?
35 minutes.
Good grief.
Yeah.
You're going to struggle getting...
They had 10 stations at the bar, right? But they had 4 staff on.
Oh,
should have had Andrew there. I saw him behind. I saw him.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that on Facebook. You look very professional, Andy.
What's that?
When
behind the bar.
Behind the bar at Skeggy.
Oh yeah, it was the story. There was we was in the bar and there weren't many in there, to be fair. And you know Rob's daughter Amy.
Yeah.
From Wisharon, his eldest girl. She was running the bar and she ran out of beer, but she ran her own. So she come over to me. She says, "Will you keep an eye on the bar? I don't know anybody else in here to watch the bar." So anyway, I was stood there watching it, and there's all these people wanting a pint. I thought, well, I'll have a go. It can't be that hard, can it? So I pulled a few pints.
You did a good job. Look great. Like you'd done it before.
I think Rob were in America actually. He were.
Was he?
He left her to it. But yeah.
Where did he go? Where's he been in America then?
He went to Indiana to watch the Indiana Midget Week.
Oh, right.
He hadn't told me himself, but Ben Hissett was telling me that he wanted to get away before his busy season starts. And he said to Ben, "I fancy a bit of racing in America. What's the best thing to see?" And he ended up going to Indiana for that Midget Week. I think it's about 6 nights consecutive or something.
Oh,
midget racing.
Should have kept his car there and raced it.
Yeah, should have taken it back over because he's got that midget. He's got that back.
Yeah, true. Yeah. That's probably why he likes him, because he enjoyed himself, didn't he, when he went out there and had a going one.
He said it was the hardest thing he's ever driven.
Yeah, I can believe it. Yeah.
Physically, animals, Well, we were at Skeggy the week after you were there, Andrew, because you were there for that auto speed week, weren't you?
Yeah.
And then I did a deal with Rob where I hired the track off him and we just run the karts there as nobody else. And this is Rob for you, isn't it? He just gives me the keys to the stadium. Help yourself, Ian. Well, all right, Rob. Well, what about whatever. If you want to open bar, keys for bar are there. Everything else, just do it. Crazy.
He's brilliant, though, isn't it? I think that's fantastic, though. That's pretty good. Oh, he's a top man. He's a top man. I'm surprised he didn't go and see if he was over. Was it last week? No, it wasn't last week that he was in America. Because obviously Tom's just been out there for a week, hasn't he? Racing sprint cars. Didn't do badly, actually. Got better as the week went on, I think. Bit of a struggle early on. I think it was going to be difficult. Not in the car for so long. I mean, it's
Do you watch it? Do you want any of you guys watched any of it or not?
Yeah, I watched a bit of it.
Yeah. I thought it done really well.
Have you got it on floor then, Colin?
I kind of watched the highlights the day after. I'm a bit of a cheapskate. I don't subscribe to Flow.
But, I do that as well.
USAC have a highlights, about 15 minutes highlights the day after. I thought he done really well because it's a different ball game to what we're used to. And these guys are racing those things week in, week out. And just to fly over there and get in one, it's bloody hard.
I mean, I was watching it. I watched quite a bit of it because I've got that floor racing, and there was this one particular race. I don't know if you saw it, but the lad that was following him, he was behind Tom.
Flipped.
Literally, all he did was put his right rear just in the wrong bit of dirt, and he fucking bicycled about 3 or 4 times end over end. It's lethal, really.
It is, especially when you're a fast track like that. They went to another real big. I can't remember which track it was. It was a massive bowl.
He went to one on Saturday from a place called Port Royal in Pennsylvania, and they call it the speed. They call it the Speed Palace. It's scary fast around there.
It is. It looked at. There's a clip of him. Someone took from the infield as he went past, which he put up on either Instagram or Twitter. I can't remember which, and it is. You can see how quick it is. I mean,
Williams
big ball stuff.
Williams Grove's a pretty fast track as well. It's like a paperclip, long straights and tight corners, and that's the same sort of deal there. If you get it wrong going into the corner on your own, you kind of bicycle and flip. And I've seen videos of loads of them going outside the track there. It's you don't appreciate the speed until you see them crash.
I see Ryan had a feature win as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. He did. He did really well out there, straight up off the bat. I was going back to what you said about Tom, because and that flip. Because remember, was it last year or no, 2 years ago? Tom had a massive accident out in one of those tracks, and he didn't talk about it much afterwards. But I was speaking to him after the UK Open. I was in the bar with him and speaking. It was only a handful of us there, and he was talking about that weekend. And of course, he raced in the World Final at Ipswich, and he said he shouldn't have raced. He said he was puking up the night before, that day. Still hadn't really recovered from the shunt he had out in America. It really did shake him up pretty bad, I think. And yeah, so yeah, it's like I say, it's big ball stuff, isn't it? Out there, it really is. You're gonna be not before Shilling do that.
When you flip over there, it's not just like a tip over; it's a barrel roll, and you go all the way. So it must shake you up quite a bit. And
I thought so. Yeah, and then of course he went to a really small track after that. Last one was like a 6-mile track, wasn't it? Really tight. It was a bit like Mildenhall. It was. They were chucking it around there. Brady Bacon and the rest of them. What's his name? What's his CV? Who was the one who won it?
Logan Seavey.
Logan Seavey, yeah, who won at the Chili Bowl. I mean, he's
brilliant. He's a really good driver in Neil. That Logan.
He is, isn't he? He is
talented.
Yeah, I know. And there's one or two of them like him that are just.
You see, Tom's actually racing the cream of the cream, isn't he? In wingless, it's for him to go out there. It's a hell of a thing to do. Is that what he's doing? I know. He does struggle. On the face of it, he struggles, but I think he does bloody brilliant to run like top 15 against them sometimes, which he does quite regular. It's bloody good.
You see, a lot of people look at it and think, "Oh, Ryan's doing better," but Ryan's racing a completely different group of drivers.
Yeah, in the 360s, but he does race in the 410s. He has done the World of Outlaws, and his pace is getting better in those. He's showing he can do it. And I was going to talk about this, and I'll talk about it now. The fact is, those two guys are showing everyone else over here how to do it, really, because there's no coincidence that I know they've got good kit and all the rest of it, but no coincidence that they're winning everything over here.
The reaction speed, Neil, is because everything's so much quicker out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the classic thing when I stepped from F1s into Rebels. It was like racing in slow motion, and that's why. And
United those.
Everything happened slower, so you were in a way you were ahead, and that's. We've mentioned this before on here. That's why I believe, aside from the kit, that Ryan and Tom are just that little step ahead on the dirt.
They've got good kit, but they've still got to drive it. If you put somebody like me in the car, I'll be hopeless. They're still doing well, and trying to beat guys who are racing week in, week out. That's a fantastic achievement. But they also must be picking up a lot of knowledge with setups and things like that, which they've probably got one or two little tricks that they got up their sleeve, and that's what maybe why they're
everything we do. Yeah, everything we do over here does follow America eventually. We get it eventually. They do it first, and some of the stuff that Ryan and Tom will be doing, they're ahead of the game, aren't they? In prep, tire conditioning, all this sort of stuff. Just all these little things what the Yanks are doing, they'll be picking up on all that, and they'll definitely be applying it to our sort of racing. Going back to the driving side of it, you lads will have noticed just the last few years how Tom especially, how he's changed the style of driving from what it was. You can watch a race, and they're all starting to twig now. The other top drivers are trying to emulate the way he's driving. But like a couple of years ago, when he first started to change his style, it was like he was different to everybody else, wasn't he? He was looking around the track for different bits of dirt and different. And I know it's not America, and our tracks are not really like that, but they are a little bit, if you know what I mean. You can't, and it's worked for him, hasn't it?
I think the Oddsall World Final really showed that. I thought that he won. I know Lee challenged him, whatever, but you could see him moving the car around the track, going out wide to try and pick up a bit of dirt. When he had to, he'd come in low, you know. And I just watched him, and it was a pleasure to watch, if you know what I mean. It really was. Yeah.
Right, and lads, I'm going to interrupt there because we want to do the official. I'm going to use a lot of this stuff that we've put on here. I don't know if you ever watch the football podcast with Man United guy. What's his name?
Gary Neville, Roy King.
Yeah.
Wright.
The overlap.
Brilliant. Overlap, absolutely brilliant. So I'm trying to replicate that. That's why I'm recording this bit at the beginning, so we can have that at the beginning.
Who's going to be Roy Keane then?
I'll be the miserable bastard.
He's brilliant though, isn't he, Roy? I do like Roy Keane.
He's funny, and he's so dry.
He's fantastic. I think they're all
I like the Lineker one as well, though, with Big Mika.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I prefer that. I prefer the overlap, though. I prefer that, I think.
Yeah.
I just think it's something about it just works really. It's captivating.
Tell you what, though, Gary Neville's very, very knowledgeable about the job, isn't he?
He is. Yeah, I know. He is. Well, they all are. But it's just, and they have some great guests on there. The guy who owns Burnley, he's fascinating. Is that
the van dealer? Is that the van dealer guy from Burnley?
No, it's the guy who played American football out in the States. You know that?
It's American.
Yeah, he's brilliant. He's brilliant.
Yeah.
Right. You must know who it is. I can't remember his name.
His name has just gone off the top of my head.
I know.
I can visualise it. JJ Watt.
JJ Watt. Absolutely fabulous. He was really fascinating to listen to.
Are you still into the football, Andrew? Because I know you used to be, didn't you?
What, normal.
Yeah, I really like football. Yeah, I sort of go in waves with it. You know, the trouble is,
I'm surprised with Man United at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Man United fan.
I know.
But I thought, when you're in racing, you sometimes you can go weeks and not even get to see it. You're just busy with everything, aren't you? But I do enjoy the football. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, especially Premier League. It's always some amazing games on there. It's just epic, some of it.
So a bit not to be published here, Neil. What was that bloody dick?
I think in stock car racing at the moment, there's too many of these kind of follow-ins at the minute. I don't know. It's not how I remember stock car racing. I remember it. I think at the European on the Saturday night, Frank and Tom had a good race between each other, knocking each other wide, coming back on the inside, and there was no out-and-out leathering into the fence and putting each other off the wall. And that, to me, is what stock cars is about.
Yeah, I agree to a point, but there are times when you have a bit of niggle. Andrew's been there with plenty of other drivers, but for me, that's why I was never a massive fan of Kev Smith, because I just felt Kev he'd nail you, and 9 times out of 10 go in with you. That, to me, they want a lot of skill to that. If you can put them in and carry on, sometimes you've got to put them in and go in with them if you're having a bit of a do. But the driving, that one with Rebecca on, was it Rebecca or was it Jessica?
Jessica
it was, yeah.
Yeah, that he put in. To me, that was just cowardly, because then he just pulls onto infield. There's no wrong with his car, is there?
Not really odd. Right, I'm going to stop you again. Right, I'm going to do this introduction and then we'll carry on. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Talking Stocks podcast with me, your host, Neil Randon, and our normal team of Ian Higgins and Colin Castley. But we've also got a special guest with us for this episode, who is none other than the stock car legend, all-time great, Andy Smith, 5-time world champion. Welcome to the podcast, Andy.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me.
That's all right.
I'm sure it'll be an interesting hour or whatever it is.
Oh, well, the way things are going, since we've already been chatting, it'll probably go on longer than that, I think. But never mind. Hopefully, it will keep everybody entertained. And if you do enjoy the podcast, please do like and subscribe and share the podcast wherever you can, because the more you subscribe, the more input we can give going forward, and it just helps us immensely if we can get those subscriptions for it. And so not only will we be talking stock cars, BriSCA F1 throughout the the next hour or so, we will also be having a prize giveaway at some point as well, which would be a limited edition print of Andy's dad, Stuart Smith, which I will give out a few questions, and the winner will be picked out of a hat at a later date. So we'll do that later on. But for now, we'll just go straight into, basically, we haven't done this for a while. This is our first podcast we've done this season, so there's a little bit to talk about, and I'm sure Andy will have give us a bit of an insight into his views on one or two of the things that have happened throughout the last few months. So yeah, I first of all thought we'd do well, start right from the beginning. We had Kings Lynn, obviously, who started the season off, and the second one we had Ryan scoring a maximum, which is the first one we've had in about a year or so. I was there for that. And I think you were as well, weren't you, Colin, for the C2C? Yeah. I have to say, it was one of, and we've talked about Ryan in the past and Tom, and the fact that they sort of stepped the skill level of BriSCA F1 to a new plateau. It's they raised the bar when it comes to the driving side of the sport. And Ryan that day, I know Tom wasn't there and one or two others weren't, but it was one of the most remarkable things I've seen in a while. I watched him throughout the whole of that evening, and he just put the car anywhere he wanted. He made everybody else look like they're in slow motion, almost like that, the handbrake on. He just positioned everything perfectly. He just got all the gaps right. He moved to the right position. Everywhere he went was the right move. And I know obviously in the Grand National, you got the yellow flags which you do need for a 1 lap handicap GN, but still to do what he did was remarkable. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I think it was a fantastic piece of driving, and it just shows a good car, good driver, a knowledgeable crew is hard to beat. And it's just his time at the moment. Him and Tom, it's their time at the minute. Andy had his time, and Frank's had his time, Lundy's had his time, but they just seem to be head and shoulders above everybody else in car setup, car prep, and driving styles. And they're going to be hard to beat. They are going to be hard to beat. I think the others are catching up. And on tarmac, they're probably not quite ahead as they are on shale, but it's tough to see beyond them winning the major championships this year.
Particularly on shale, really.
Particularly on shale.
Yeah. I think you're right. It just seems to just have that extra momentum. I don't know. What do you think, then, guys? Ian?
Yeah, I've said before, I think for the pair of them, the going out to the States, racing out there has obviously helped them. We briefly touched on, I think tyres, what they might do with their, I'm not saying doing anything illegal, by the way, but tyre prep and stuff like that. I think this is stuff that they will have possibly learned from the States as well. So I think all that, comes into it.
Yeah. And you, Andy, you think the same, presumably?
Yeah, just echo what the other lads have said, really. I mean, the American side of it, definitely, as regards, like we had a little chat before this, didn't we? And I just think everything that comes over here, certainly from my experience, comes from the States, doesn't it? And even though our sport is quite unique, there's nothing quite like it out there. Many of the principles of, how the car works around a left turn only dirt track, they apply, and them lads have been going out to America now for 2 or 3 years, maybe more, quite regularly, and I'm sure they're picking stuff up. So it's not just the drive that sharpen the driving and learn them how to search around a track and read a track a bit more than some of the other guys over here. It's the little things in the preparation, I think, as well. Like Ian touched on it, maybe tyres and other things. And but I mean, it's great for the sport. It's raised the bar, hasn't it? You can see it. I mean, you just watch. I mean, you watch Tom Harris sometimes, and he'll go into a corner and he's got throttle and brake together. He's running the throttle into the corner, up the track, and trailing the brake, and nobody else has ever driven like that over here. You basically go as fast as you can down the straight with what grip you've got. you lick your brake to balance the car, and then you'll be back on the throttle, and you do a little bit of left foot braking. I mean, I used to do it a little bit, but not in the same degree as what Tom's doing it now. And it just makes for a faster overall lap speed, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And but it's up to the others to. I mean, they're twigging a little bit. I don't watch loads of races, but I've seen a few videos recently, and a few of the other top drivers are starting to try and emulate the style of driving. I mean, I saw the European video, and the track wasn't very good, but Tom Harris is like trying everything all over the track to try and get near Ryan. He couldn't do it because the track wasn't in the right condition, I don't think, for that. But yeah, I mean, I like to see it. I love to watch either of them. I know they're dominating, but it's great to see.
They've also got a lot of confidence as well. They're going out there knowing that they're probably going to win. I mean, I've never been in that position, but Andy, you probably have, where you've gone out there thinking, I've got the car, no one's going to beat me. I mean, it must be a great feeling.
It does. Success builds confidence, doesn't it? And you can feel a little bit sort of invincible. I mean, the only thing is that there are two of them. It's not just one. There's two of them, and two into one shouldn't really go, should it?
No. No.
With a bit of luck from a pure, fans perspective, we want to see them fall out of it, don't we? You don't think?
We do, of course, absolutely. There's too much of the pally stuff in Formula Ones. I know. I mean, Rob Speak again. I said before we started that I had a chat with him and Tom up in the bar at the UK Open, and it was the day after that epic Grand National on that Skeggy on the previous evening, the one that they all were just knocking 7 bells out of each other. And Rob said, that following afternoon, he said, well, I had to do something, because he said they won't hit each other. So he was trying to put some spark into it, and he certainly did. I mean, whenever he's in a race, it's going to be like that.
That was a cracking race of the decade, or race of the century. That was just,
one of those will
just stick in the memory for all time. It
was a great race.
Yeah,
it was a bit like sorry, go on.
I was going to say, going back to what Andrew was talking about, the American thing, a name he won't particularly want to hear, but years ago, Bob Ciccone came across with his old man, and they borrowed my car for the Hennesford World Final. And, we've gone there a few days before, and they'd done some things to the car that, we were like, nah, you don't want to be doing that. They took a load of stagger out of it. They did all this stuff. And on the day, he's like, right, warm the car up in the pits, and then all the foreign entrants went onto the infield to do the hot laps. And Bob's the only one with his car running. He sat there with it, revving it about 3,000 RPM, and I'm thinking, bloody hell, And then everybody sort of sets off and does a steady lap and goes round. He set off like a rocket because he got everything warm. He knew everything was warm. He wasn't going to have a problem. And, he shocked everybody by beating Krunder for the hot lap. But again, it was the sort of things that they did that came, from America, so to speak, the way they did it out there. So,
I remember speaking to his old man, and he said that you're setting your cars up all wrong over there. You're setting it off for the drive from this part of the car where you should be doing it from the other side. He said, you're not learning. You got, and maybe Murray probably learned a bit from that as well, because Bob come over and Bob's dad come over and helped Murray when he won the European a few years back.
Yeah, they were big friends. But the thing was that they couldn't, Bob particularly couldn't cope with the contact. It's all right setting these cars up perfect to race and be flat out, but then there's always a thing called a front bumper, isn't there?
Yeah.
Sorry to mention it, Andrew. I know that was not a good world final, and I know what.
I was trying to avoid that one. I was going to say that, talking about him revving it quite a bit. I think he did that in Andy's car as well, but in the wrong gear.
Lisa's.
From what I remember. It was Lisa's.
What he did that particular year. I'll be brief, but it was at Bradford World Final, and we went practicing the day before, and I was unsure which car to race because I had two available at the time, and I'd committed to lend one to Bob. Anyway, we went practicing the day before at Odsall, and I obviously put myself in the one that I thought were better, but there wasn't nothing in it. Anyhow, he came out with me for practice, and I did a couple of laps, like going steady, and then I started to give it some. I couldn't shake him off. he was literally glued to me back bumper for probably 8-10 laps. So we come off and I said, well, have another couple of runs. I says, but you're there. You know what I mean? It's like, you're fast. And then, unfortunately, on the World Final night, they qualified the foreigners in a separate race that year. They had their own race to qualify for grid positions in the World Final. Really strange way of doing it. I don't think they've ever done it since. Anyhow, he bloody got spun out early on. And when he got back going, he put it in first gear. And I think he must have forgot himself. He thought he was in his bloody, I don't know whether he thought he was in his sprint car or what. He just he never changed up. He booted it in first gear to spin it the right way. And when you'd expect him to clutch it and drop into top, he didn't. He just carried on driving in first gear, which was a real shame because it ruined his night. It cost me a few bob, and he never got to race the World Final, which was a shame, really.
Mm. Oh dear, yes, that was. I think we all
remember a
little
story. Hope it didn't take too long.
Don't worry. So we were talking about Tom and Ryan. Obviously, I think Frank's rate his game a little bit. This season so far, he seems to be driving pretty well. I think. I mean, he did pretty well in that European for a while. But what do you think? I mean, who else?
He's always there or thereabouts. Frank, no matter what.
Of course he is. Of course he is. Absolutely. But who else is capable of matching the top two? I think we talked about Lee briefly. I mean, he can put a shift in when he's on his game. But is any young up and coming drivers who can break through the ranks to make a mark? Do you think?
Certainly on tarmac, there's a lot of young kids who impressed me in the last few meetings. You got the young Hunter who's doing really well. Done really well at Aldershot. James Morton Hall or Morton, I should say. Heat final. The seems to be on tarmac. The lower graders and the youngsters seem to get into it much quicker than they do on shale. Yeah. Tom Story is doing well. Thomas Rogers is doing well. There's a lot of young kids on tarmac doing really well. I know they got to break through to the next level, but I think it looks on tarmac certainly looks healthy.
I think it was nice to see Charlie Soder get a final win. He's had a rough time, hasn't he, since he won the world sort of thing. So it was good to see him on in there mixing again. Not particularly the youngsters, but I mean, on the shale, you can never discount Finn, can you?
No.
No. Craig's there or thereabouts on the shale. The tarmac, as you say, is a little bit different. I think it's about being a little bit more about being precise on the tarmac. I think, the shale, obviously, I know it sounds daft, but the shale driving is a totally different style. And I think a lot of them get to grips quicker and easier with the tarmac racing.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it seems to be a lot smoother, don't they? The young kids starting out now are very smooth. I don't know whether that's due to the minis or whatever. But they're not wild. They're not wild overdoing all this steering wheel. They're nice and precise. And
back in our day, Colin, it was, and even when Andrew was racing, to be fair, the difference between the top men's cars and the white and yellow tops cars was quite often a big, big difference. And then it's got closer and closer and closer. And now you've got a lot of car builders out there building bloody good cars and young talent. So, some of these white tops and yellows have got amazing kit. They still got to drive them, I know, but, we had to learn to master a nail before we went on to something half decent.
Yeah. What do you think, Andrew? Anybody stand out to you?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch lots. Sometimes I tend to watch it Skeggy more often than not because they seem to be on with the twos where we're racing. And there's young Callum Thornton's fast, and he's he probably stands out from one of the very young ones for having the speed. Catherine's obviously she's on a bit of an holiday at the minute. I think she's back soon, isn't she?
Yeah, she's racing Ipswich.
Ipswich.
Oh, is she?
Yeah.
Oh, great! It's good to see her back because she was going from strength to strength last year, weren't she?
She was.
And obviously I've got a bit of a sweet spot for the female drive, and that's come out all wrong.
We know what you mean.
Is going to come through that back door in a minute.
Yeah, that's
rolling
it.
pin.
Yeah, I'm married to a female stock car driver, aren't I? And I've got two.
Yeah.
I've got two races myself, so I always keep an eye on them, how they're going on, the female drivers, because I know what a challenge it is from first-hand experience. For them to be out there mixing it, and Catherine doesn't just circulate, does she? She's in on the act, isn't she? And so's Courtney, to be fair. Courtney around Skegness when she's up top is brilliant. And I think when Catherine comes back, obviously, if she can hit the ground running a bit, she's got great backing, hasn't she? I mean, she's got one of the best men in the business helping her with the cars and what have you. So I wouldn't discount Catherine for doing really good things in the next few years.
Yeah, I think she can win. I still think she can win a major championship. And she won the under 25s, is it, or what they call it? It's at Skeggy. She should have won the British, last year, but she went in a bit too hot, shall we say, when she went for Ryan. But the fact is, she's still learning.
She had the chance to do it, and
she was in there.
The worst thing you can do is not go for it and regret.
No, she had to do it.
You've got to go for it.
Sorry,
Andrew, go on.
I was going to say, did any of you notice? I didn't go to the British, but I watched obviously the online stuff, and did any of you notice after how disappointed she was?
Yeah.
She wasn't.
It took her a while to get over it, to be honest.
Everybody was saying how amazing you did and everything, but I think she's obviously very competitive, because she was kicking herself because she realised she could have won it, and if she'd have just done things a little bit different. But that's how you learn, isn't it? When you're a young driver, you get it wrong before you get it right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, on previous podcasts, we'd rated her, hadn't we? We all said how impressed we were with her. But like you said there, Andrew, the thing was, everybody's praising her, and she's beating herself up.
Yeah.
So
that's the way it is when you're in top level in your particular field. You do beat yourself up.
How do you know?
Well, I wouldn't know, but I'm just going by what I no, but just by other sports. I mean, look at Rory McIlroy on the weekend. I don't know if, just to change the subject, I don't know if anybody watched the US Open, but oh my goodness me, that was just gut wrenching. That was. And it's going to take him a while to get over that. So and in our sport, which obviously is a much lower level than that sort of competition, but it's still, you beat yourself up and you don't win. I mean, I'm sure, Andy, you must have, been one or two races in your career that you, especially early on, you really thought you should have won and you could have won, but didn't, through maybe a mistake or whatever. I know there was a World Final you didn't win, which was nothing to do, wasn't your fault at all. It's just your engine started playing up. But is there any race that you remember that you think, what did I do that? Oh, we should have done this.
Yeah, loads, isn't there? There's loads of times. There's loads of, Ian will vouch for that. There's plenty of times you think, what an idiot, if I'd have just done things a bit different. But I think you get a bit more as you get a bit older in your racing career. Them times come a bit less, don't they? I think. There's been several. But the trouble is, you do beat yourself up about it. You try and put a brave face on, but when you're competitive, you're almost critic, aren't you? You don't need anybody highlighting when you've messed up.
No.
But I remember the one that sort of, when you just mention it, the one that springs to mind more than anything is probably, for me personally, was, I don't know if you remember when the Silver Roof changed to the National Series. Do you remember that? Probably 20 odd year ago. And the first year we went to the National Series, it went really close between me and Frankie. And I think it went to the last meeting, which it wasn't a shootout format then. It was an actual 35 round series. And so it was like pretty much all season long. There wasn't many meetings, didn't count. Anyway, it went to the last meeting. There weren't many points in it. And somebody had a go at me in one of the heats. There's a bit of a Wayman connection. I think they were perhaps doing some repaying me. I don't know. But instead of just like putting it to one side, I lost my head for the rest of the night and I drove really badly. And I I really beat myself up about that night because, you know, I didn't keep a cool head. I drove badly after that, and that's one that sticks out. But you get over it, don't you? And as long as you learn from it, you know, don't you know, move forward. But
it's interesting because I think even John Lund, I spoke to him, and he lost it. I think in one of those
Stox, when him and Frank were fighting for the points, they took each other out, and Andrew came through and won it.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
and he regrets that he lost his head that night. The only time that Lundy ever lost his cool, I think, was that one of the few occasions, and he paid the price, and it it happens, doesn't it? It happens to everyone.
It is an emotional sport when you get behind the wheel. You get behind the wheel of a car in the car park going out of a meeting, and everyone's like. But when you're racing, it's difficult. Somebody knocks you wide or whatever. You think, "Oh, bloody will get him back." I was never any good at that. I could never hit anybody. I took myself out more time, every time apart from once. If I tried to hit somebody, I took myself out. So these guys who can put something in the fence and carry on, that's a fantastic skill as well. You know, Andy's been pretty good at that. I've seen him put a few away in this time, and it's just an art.
Yeah,
I still think that the world final that Murray won at Cov with Andrew,
one of the great races,
Frankie, and then Lundy decided he was going to join the party. I was actually just sat behind that because they just lapped me because I'd gone out with Lundy, and I just sat behind that watching it, and it was, you know, that was another one that John said maybe he should have just let Andrew take Frank out and he nip up the inside, but instead he went wailing in on that one, didn't he?
Yeah, it was a great race.
Yeah, I couldn't actually believe it because, like, I got Frankie in the fence eventually, and John come vaulting over me back tire just as I went in the fence with Frank because I popped my tire like half a lap before I went.
Oh, really?
I went to get Frankie, and as I hit him in the side, I saw my front tire go down the straight. So I weren't going to get around the next corner, and neither were Frank. But if John had been telepathic and read my mind, he'd have just lifted off and turned up the inside. But as we hit the fence, he come flying up my wheel. I thought, bloody hell, what's he doing? You know, like, was he? I didn't even know he was there because weren't looking behind me or anything. But yeah, I suppose he just misread it. But he tried to make his move to get rid of both of us, if you know what I mean. But because I went in so fast, he just misjudged it. But it was a good, good for the fans. They still talk about it, don't they now?
They do. Yeah. I mean, what was amazing that night as well, because I was there, excuse me, with my dad, and majority of motorsport news staff went that night as well. A load of people had not been in stock cars before went to that world final, and they absolutely were bowled over by it. They just couldn't believe what they were watching because it was extraordinary. I mean, the way you were obviously, because it was all to do with the setup, wasn't it? Frank had got his car set up for the dry, and I don't think you had your setup right. Was that right? For you were more. His car was definitely quicker in the second half.
Yeah, what it actually was from my point of view, which we had a rally tire on the left rear, which was to be honest, I was a little bit too clever for my own good that night, if I'm going to be really honest, because I got the fastest car at Coventry all year on a certain rally tire, which I knew was good. But because I was looking for that little bit more, I put a tire on that hadn't tested enough. And it actually, the tread failed on it and it turned to jelly once it got hot. And I got absolutely no grip for the second half of the race. And Frank was better in the dry and he just pulled me in. But I should have just stuck with what I knew, if you know what I mean. But I'm a bit like that. I'm always like, I was a bit like that. I was always like trying something, just to try and get a bit more. And sometimes it can backfire on you, can't it? Shouldn't have done it.
If you don't try, Andrew, you never learn, do you?
No, I just tried it the wrong time. I tried it the Coventry before. I tried this tire because I knew nobody else had one of these tires, but the conditions weren't the same as the world final. I was silly. I should have used my head because it was a longer race and a drier night. The track went more abrasive and drier, and so it didn't work. It went the other way. It dropped off the cliff, the tire, and yeah, so Frankie just reeled me in. But yeah, none of us won.
I was but he didn't win it either, so there you go.
No, it was amazing race though. Amazing race. It's interesting, that car, I mean, we did a podcast a little while ago now, our top 10 cars of all time. And one of the cars that I put in my top 10 was the car you drove, that traffic lights car, the dual purpose car yours. I thought that was one of the great cars. How would you regard that in all the cars that you had in your career? Would that be one of the best, or what was the best car you drove? I mean, or favourite car, shall I say? Or maybe obviously it's an obvious question.
Yeah.
Obvious answer probably.
Well, no, I mean, I really like that car because it was built right from the start to be a dual surface car, because at the time I didn't have enough equipment around me to run two cars, to be honest. And I just thought I'll put everything into this one car, but I'll try and make it so it's adaptable. And to be honest, it were a brilliant car. It was the fastest car on shale more often than not. Lundy had changed tack at that time, and his gold car was good, but then he went to them other cars. Was one of them there on your picture?
Yeah, and, wheelbase one.
So I believe that car was consistently the fastest on shale, but also when I got it right on tarmac, and we had a couple of meetings on a run, it was as quick as Frankie, but it wasn't consistently as. But it was a brilliant car. It wasn't a very lucky car in World Finals.
No,
it would have been. I was a bit, to my mind, I didn't want the sport to have two cars, and I spent a lot of years sort of being a bit stubborn and running one car, because I didn't see any need for two cars, and I didn't particularly think you should have that level of investment in the sport. It's not something I wanted to do, but in the end, I just sort of gave in and went to two cars, and I never looked back after that, if I'm honest. It made it a whole lot easier. Whereas that car there, we used to change. God,
front axles and everything, wasn't it? Yeah.
Lots and lots of stuff here, and the position of the back axle, the complete front, loads and loads of stuff. And it was very, very time consuming and draining. And when I went to two cars, it made it an awful lot easier, to be fair, but more money invested. Too much money.
And you still think, I mean, I imagine you still think that really about the sport, that we're going, I mean, maybe we've gone too far, too late.
It's how do you shut the door after the horse is bolted, isn't it? I suppose you're at where you're at, aren't you? It's
but it doesn't seem to matter on tarmac, though, does it? Because if anything, the sport's thriving on tarmac. We've got loads of potential, like we talked about, the young guns that are coming through the sport. More young guns coming through the sport on tarmac than there are on shale. Even though shale is the cheaper option, probably, even though you probably get more damage. But yeah, it's just strange, isn't it? I mean, like I say, we went and went to Aldershot, and the young kids there are all doing really well, and as they do at Skeggy. So there's money. It seems to be money there for people to burn, it seems. But I mean,
as Andy said, it would be great to have one car you could race one day on shale, the next day on tarmac, just put a different set of tyres on it. But every car would have to be identical, otherwise somebody's going to have an advantage over another car, longer wheelbase or different engine positions or whatever. It's almost impossible, I think, any series in the world to have one car that goes well on both surfaces. You either got to, I think we're pretty good what we do, but it's still, you do need the two cars, which is, it's unfortunate, but I think that's the way it's going to have to be. I don't think it'll ever change.
No, I don't think it. I think that's exactly right. But I was just going to go back and go back a little bit. We were talking about maximums earlier on. I mean, I did a bit of research about it and how difficult it is to win. To score a maximum. I know that rules have changed over time. We've had, it was at one point you didn't have to take the one lap handicap. But you didn't get the double points or whatever. There was a pit series seasons like that. But out of all your many years in the sport, how many maximums do you think you got, Andy?
For me, I don't know, one or two.
Yeah, you're right. It was one. Just had the one. It was at Coventry as well. It was quick round there, as you said. It was at Coventry, 2002, April the 6th. So it might have even been in that car. I guess that might have been. I don't know how long you had the traffic signals car going for. You had it.
It would have been if it were 2000. If it was 2002, it would have been that car behind you there. Yeah, it would have been. But
you won,
they're very difficult. They're very difficult to do, aren't they? Maximum. Very difficult. You really need
settle on a maximum.
Yes, exactly.
It's the Grand National, isn't it? I mean, there'll be, if you look at the statistics of heat and finals, there'll have been so many of them over the years, and then you try and add that national from a lap down, and you need Lady Luck on your side, don't you? You can be the fastest man on the track, but unless you get probably 2 bouts of yellows, but they have to be timed at the right time as well in the race, because a very early yellow flag will knacker you. There's too many cars in the track, because when it goes too many still going and it's single file and you've not passed any, then forget it. You know, you're way behind. You need the timing of the stoppages to fall into place for you, don't you, as well?
Yeah, so exactly.
I think it's probably more of a, when my dad's era, in my dad's, well, I'm going to say it were easier. He made it look easy, didn't he? He did quite a lot of it. But, you know, I think as time's gone on, equipment's got more and more level, hasn't it? Like Ian said earlier. So it's a very hard thing to do now, you know, definitely.
It is.
I think Tom nearly did it. Tom nearly did it the other week, didn't he?
He did, didn't he? And when he had.
It was the heat. It was the heat you missed out on.
That's right. Yeah, it's a second heat, I think. He did the other two, absolutely. But your dad, he's obviously holds the record, 30 maximums in his career. I mean, and he went through one period. I think it was 1977. I think he had. It was. I can't remember. I did have it written down, and I've not got the record here. But it's an extraordinary amount of. He had about 4 maximums in a row, I think, or 5. And he's, you know, from one weekend through to the other, he had consecutive maximums. Quite extraordinary, really. Yeah, he was different league when it came to dominating at that period, and I was in the Dodo as well. Just, you know, one of the great cars. So he was just exceptional. And who do you think would be second in that list? Sorry, well, you say what you can say first.
I was just going to say, it's a bit like I remember Rob being in his F2 highlight, you know, at the height of his F2 career. I think them sort of drivers pull in the pits and the rest of the drivers just shoulders drop, don't they? And they're almost defeated, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, I remember Rob with one arm resting on the cab, driving around one-handed occasionally, did a little bit of showboating. I remember him doing that when he won the European in his F1. The second time he won it, I think he did that near the end when Frank was desperately trying to close him down. Right, well, who do you think second in the list of all-time maximum winners?
Lundy?
No, not Lundy. Anybody else? No, only had one, Peter. Yeah, I'll tell you, it's Frankie Wayman Jr. Had 9. And 2 of those were 4-timers. So he won 2 heats. When it was 2/3 format, he won 2 heats, the final and Grand National. Only, I think Lee Fair's the only other one I can think of that did a 4-timer. Won 2 heats, final and Grand National. Yeah, so he's got 9. Third in the list is Doug Cronshaw with 7. Then is John Lund with 5. Frankie Wayman Sr. with 5. And then it's Mike Close with 4. And all of Mike Close's were at Blackburn. Where he dominated, all at Blackburn. There have been 1 or 2 others, I think, did 4 as well. I've got all 3. I think Len Wolfson had 3, and plenty of others just had the 1. Rob Spink never did it, or has never done it, and so Andy's got 1. Your brother has never achieved it either. He never got a maximum. But I thought it was quite interesting. It's really rare to do, but it's quite a monumental achievement when it is done. So fair play to Ryan, and also to Tom did it, I think, last year. And I think previously, with the one before that, was Luke Davison did it at Skegness, which he managed to do the whole 3. Yeah, so that's that. So I was going to say, with you, we're talking about your career, and so I mean, we talked about your dad, and actually we talked about your favourite. What's your favourite win, first of all? Your favourite win of all time in your career, if you had one race that stands out above all others?
Probably my last World Final. just for probably personal reasons, really. I don't know, because it was 3 on the trot, and that was a massive thing to myself, because I mean that's a rare thing to do, isn't it? And
definitely.
There's not many things I've done that my dad's done, you know. So that's something I sort of matched him. I actually matched him on. That's probably because it was the 3rd one on the bounce, you know, and it's one thing retaining the gold roof. That's pressure, and that's hard enough. But when you put a lot of pressure on myself to get that 3rd on the trot, and sort of felt
picture.
I thought, sorry,
that picture of you, your dad, and Chizzy.
Yeah, on the podium when you put. Chizzy that was brilliant. That was brilliant. So it's a fantastic memory to take, you know, to have of your dad, and you know, Dave Chisholm as well. The 3 of you on the podium. It was a nice touch that, then, you know, putting that together. Yeah. And I've got a picture behind me. He's from that race, which I think is why it's also probably your best world final win, because you had to work hard for it as well, because Ron Kroonler was on it that night, if I recall. He fought for the lead in that race, didn't he? I think in the early stages.
They're all different, aren't they? World finals. It's like I don't know. You can win one. Like I won one at Ipswich, and everyone said it were a boring race, and it was really, I suppose. But it doesn't matter how you win them as a driver. It never did to me. I mean, it's lovely to win an no holds barred stock car race. Fantastic, but the main thing is to win them, innit? I think. You know, if you win off pole position and run away with it, that means no one's good enough to beat you, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's every bit as satisfying as, you know, starting on row 3 and winning it, I suppose. To me, it is anyway. It didn't really make any much difference. It were only, you know, you get people who didn't like you try and poo-poo it as being boring, you know, and had it easy and all that. Nothing's easy. Nothing comes easy in anything, does it? Nothing, certainly not in Formula 1 stock car racing on the biggest night of the year. It doesn't come easy, because
the pressure
it's a big story getting there, isn't it? It's not just that night. You've got to qualify well, you've got to get through your semi, you've got to be reliable, you've got to psychologically make your opposition know that they've got a job to beat you. You know, I used to take a little bit of pride in that. Probably the last 7 or 8 years I raced, when you looked at, they used to do things in programs, and other drivers used to tip who they think would win. And more often than not, most people said me, and I was quite proud of that, because that means that going into the big occasion when everybody's got the best stuff on, you know, you can race week in, week out. Some drivers don't put on. John Lund was a classic. John Lund didn't put 100% into every race. He timed it, and he peaked at the right
when the
time.
money was there.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he had that little bit in reserve, didn't he? At the height of his career, and
yet Peter was always on it, wasn't he? Did you not feel like before him, Peter was always trying to get it 100%, and then he sort of, I'm not saying Peter didn't raise the bar, because he did, but Peter was like always flat out, and like you said, John always had that little bit in reserve, and when it was the big one, and I felt pretty much like you were like that as well, to be fair. You brought it to the table on the big night.
Yeah, well, thank you. I tried to. That's what I tried to do, and John Lund was my teacher that I watched. I used to knock about with Peter in that era you talked about. You know, when it was basically them two at the top, and I think you're dead right. I think when it comes to the actual, when the chips were down and the stakes were at the highest, John just had that bit of, he had that calmness and that extra bit of speed for the occasion, and it's a good thing to have in it.
Yeah, sometimes you watch him race and he's in about 5th or 6th place, and then all of a sudden it kind of clicks on, he could win this, and he goes into another gear, and that's sometimes he's just driving around, he's in 10th or whatever. Next time he's up there, I think I can win this, and he just goes for it, and he's got this another gear he can move up to, and that's what he done in big races as well. He's moved up another gear.
Definitely.
So, like Andrew said a little bit earlier, you know, he's had some bad luck in the world finals and that. But I mean, you look at his dad, how his dad totally dominated, But he hardly won any world finals in that period where he was so dominant. And it
well,
was
after
more
72,
when he decided to sit back and pick and choose his meetings more so, that all of a sudden, you know, the world finals just kept coming, didn't they?
Yeah, because I mean, he went through that period. Was it 72? He won it when at Bellevue, and he didn't win another one until 1980. It was an 8-year gap. So it reflects your career, really, Andy. Because that talk about the Ipswich win. That was your first world final win since the first. You had that long gap, didn't you, in between, you know, world final victories, and then after that, you had a flurry. And your dad was the same. I mean, he had a lot of bad luck with half shafts and all sorts of stuff, didn't it? Broke in semi-finals and all the rest of it. But it's quite interesting that you both had the similar sort of record in the worlds.
And a bit for Chizzy.
Yeah,
I won a few more.
Yeah,
I went 12 years. 12 years it was, Neil. From it was at Bradford in '94, right through to Coventry. It was in 2006, not Ipswich.
Was it?
So it was like.
Oh right, so I thought it was Ipswich first. Oh yeah, wasn't it? Yeah. Sorry, yeah, it was that. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, it was a long 12 years.
Absolutely.
When I won it, I won it dead lucky. You know, I was the next best driver on the night. I deserved second place that night, and I would have been more than happy with it because I'd not long been racing Formula Ones, and you know, Frankie just had cruel luck at the wrong time, and so like I sort of won it a little bit soon, really, but shocked myself winning it, and then it took me a bloody 12 years to win it again.
Because it's weird because you had a great record in semis, didn't it? In semi-finals, you were winning semi-finals almost at will, but you just couldn't get it right on the night, you know, just somehow. And then like that 2000, whatever was it, 2000? We like say you led by half a lap and you had it in the bag, and then was it egg gasket went or whatever?
Yeah, different reasons. I probably lost two definitely on bad luck, but not 12. You know, there were just as many from bad driving, bad decisions, not being fast enough on the night, you know, and just all sorts, really. Just it's a hard race to win, you see. It's like, you know, people think when you have a bit of a run like I was lucky enough to have towards the end, and I was winning I won 4 in 6 years or something or whatever. You know, they tend to forget how bloody hard they had to win them races. You know, they really are.
It shocked me. 12 years, I must admit.
12
years is a bloody long time. I didn't realise it was that long.
So what was the one that you mentioned the 2000? What was the other one you think you should have won and didn't?
2 years later at Coventry, when I was leading, and I did an half shaft when I was leading. It was before halfway. It was quite early in the race, but again, I got the standout car in Coventry. They weren't catching me. Broken half shaft. The one you're on about was I was leading it. The one you mentioned before. My head gasket went when I was well in the lead, and I hung on. I got third eventually. John, somebody else got past me because I were running lame for like a good 8 laps. You know, at the end. Yeah, I hung on till about 2 or 3 to go, and then John I couldn't hold him off. I didn't have anything.
It must have been painful. That it's one of those, isn't it? But like you say, you made up for it later on with plenty of other records. Of course, the only championship. I mean, you won British and national points, whatever. But you never got the European, was it? Mind you, it was harder to win back then, wasn't it? Because it was always in graded order when they started the finals. I think didn't they when you were competing?
They did it various ways over my career. You know.
Oh yeah, made them.
I'm not just saying it because I never won it, but I only really tried to win it the last 3 or 4 years. Really wanted to win it. Before then, I never really that bothered about it. I didn't go to quite a few of them because it was more of a Northampton. For years, it was more of a Northampton sort of championship to me, and it paid rubbish money. I mean, it were like 300 quid to win for years. And like, it was. I just thought it weren't. It weren't really that high up on my list for years. And then when it did start again, John Haynes, you remember John Haynes who bought Northampton?
Very well. Yeah,
I remember saying to him years and years ago when he first got Northampton, I had a conversation with him, and he says about the European. And I sort of give him my views, and he says, "Well, why is it not seem like really? Why do you not put much on it?" I says, "Because there's no money on it." And then he instantly put it up to £1,000 to win.
He was a proper bloke, was John.
Yeah, he was.
He was actually quite shocked that it was so little money to win, to be honest, when he took over Northampton. And he made the European into something special then. You know, he should have a lot of credit for actually moving it on, in my eyes. So the championship, now it's a proper championship. It has been for quite some years, you know.
It's a major, isn't it? It's one of our 4 majors, really, now.
Yeah.
It's classified as. Yeah, John Haynes, I knew him very well. We used to meet up a lot, discuss stuff, and he had a great loss, really, because he had a vision for the sport, which unfortunately he never got the opportunity to move on. But there you go. That's it was a shame that. But like I say, European now is a top event. So, and obviously the first one was won by your dad in a match race with Mike Close, because they were tied on points. I was going to say about your dad, what with your dad, what race do you remember most watching your dad? I know you probably didn't watch him in your early years because you obviously weren't old enough or born even. So, but is there a particular race that is your favourite that you witnessed him winning?
I don't know about a favourite race. That was really good that night when he won. The Bellevue World Final was memorable, weren't it, in '84? I'd have been 11 then, so I got a good recollection of that. When he got Wolfie with about 2 to go, that was a brilliant race. Do you remember that?
Yeah. I was going to say, I thought that'd be your answer, to be honest, because he's probably one of the greatest world finals it's been. I think it was one of the classic races, wasn't it? Fantastic.
But thinking about it as an actual big thing, the best I ever saw my dad was actually a boring win in the world final, but it was a year after, '85 at Bradford. It was a really dusty world final, and he won it from the front row, and he was unchallenged. But it was just the way he went about the whole day. I think they had £1,000 to win fastest lap of the pre-meeting, and he won that, and then he won the world final, and he came back out in the dash for the cash. He weren't supposed to race again, but because it was an extra race on top of the programme, a dash for cash, £1,000 winner takes all, they let him go in it. And I think few people were mourning because he'd won the world final, but it was only right because it was an extra race. It wasn't the Grand National, it was an extra one. Anyway, he went out there, and honestly, how he won that race, I do not know, because there must have been 2 or 3 people. It was only 10 laps. It used to be 10 laps.
Mick Stecco, wasn't it? Do you remember Mick? Yeah. It was Mick Stecco that was like chugging around in that little old car.
Yeah. But before that, Closey were on for winning it from like red grade, and you'd have never caught Closey. And then Phil Haig took Closey out. He chopped into him and took Mike Close out. And then who else were on for it? Somebody else looked like they were going to win it. And then all of a sudden, my dad just won it out of nowhere. And it was like, do you know, like when you have a perfect day at work, that must be it. It's like perfect day at the office, that weren't it for him, you know.
There's a video of it, and it was done by Screen Sport at the time, and the commentator on it was absolutely brilliant. And you know, he was just, and well, I mean, I was actually there on the day. I won the consolation that day because old man Wayman rolled in the world final, and I parked up. I parked up behind him thinking they were going to stop it, but no, they didn't. But no, that race, like you say, the commentary on that and they're going on about how difficult it'll be to win this, but Stuart's coming out and giving it a go. And it was just awesome. It was awesome to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And also it's interesting, Anthony Flanagan tells quite a funny story about that meeting, because he says it was the only time he can remember your dad not being in the bar after winning the world final, because he knew he wanted to come out to try and win the dash for cash at the end. So he was, he had his, it was serious. He really wanted to win that. He was really up for it. So yeah, but that was fantastic. That it was it was another remarkable night. That must have been.
I remember I think the stock car monthly they do. I remember at the time, I think Keith Barber with his little cryptic sort of, the way he does with his words is clever, isn't he? I think he titled it Goldsmith's Hall. He titled it.
That's good. That's very good.
Yeah.
I'll be proud of that headline. I must admit. Yeah. Very good. Thank you for watching part 1 of the Talking Stox podcast with our special guest, Andy Smith. As we mentioned earlier, we are giving away a BriSCA F1 70th anniversary limited edition print drawing of Andy's father, Stuart Smith. All you have to do to be in the draw to win the print is to answer the following multiple choice question. What year did Stuart Smith win his 6th and last BriSCA F1 World Final? Was it A, 1984, B, 1985, C, 1986, or D, 1987? Send your answer by email to neil.randon@factoruk.com. Winning answers will be put into a draw to pick out a winner. But please note, you must be a subscriber to the Talking Stox podcast to enter for the draw.